I've been offered a two-bedroom Shoreline on Palm Jumeirah. It's on Shoreline left-hand side. For those who know the Palm, Shoreline is a decent property, great location. Today, we'll analyze it together in Analyzing Property. I'm Makram Hani. I've listened. You've given me comments. This is our second session. And I've listened to your comments. Part of it was our audio. Our audio needs to be improved, and this time it has been. Hopefully you like it. Give me your comments. I really appreciate those who are sending me private messages. However, when you find a question or a comment that may help others, please feel free to voice it in the comments, in the public comments, so that people can look and relate to it. At the same time, it gives me an indication if we're doing things that's helpful, that is adding value to your lives or not. I've been asked a question from people who know me on a private side and have seen me analyze property before privately for them. And the question was, there's many elements that are fundamentals that I do concentrate on whenever I'm analyzing property. Why have I not made them the main part of that, and I made the main part financial? And my answer is as follows. I tried to add here everything quantifiable. Now, I promise you this time I'll add some of those fundamentals similar to the location and view NNN. And if you like, we would create a separate session that talks about a scorecard that deals with every one of those, from location to view to layout to quality of fit out to all of those elements together, combined. Yet here I checked and tried to put all what is quantifiable, and in this session you will see that I've added fundamentals on a non-financial level to it, similar to those elements, briefly, as I want to make sure that out of this you benefit, and every time we have a session you see it, you understand exactly what are we trying to achieve, and you understand, or you are able to take an informed choice knowingly and with better knowledge, with better empowerment about a property purchase you are offered or you're looking at. I'm offered tens of properties, if not hundreds of properties a day. Less than 1% of them, much less than 1%, passes through my filters. I believe that much more passes through yours today. We need to make sure that your choices are better. And it's not only a matter of price, because if price was the only aspect that we look at, analyzing property would be very easy, pretty easy. There's many other elements that we look at, and some of them are fundamentals. Let's go ahead with our analysis today. As I said, it's a two-bedroom in Shoreline, and the two-bedroom is on the left-hand side of Shoreline, as I mentioned. Again, for those who know Palm, they know that Shoreline is a prominent beachfront and non-beachfront buildings. The buildings that are beachfront look at the sea or at the backside community. The buildings that are on the left-hand side are looking at the park, which is the Central Park and the Golden Mile and the community, as well as there's other buildings that looking at the road and the other Shoreline buildings on the right-hand side. So the buildings are a location that I love, I adore, because I believe they're well located, they're well positioned, they are in the middle of the buzz yet far away. It's very easy access in and out. They're on the entrance of Palm Jumeirah. Everything is around them, and all buildings have access to the beach, clubs, and the beach is one of the nicest beaches probably in Dubai, and one of the calmest beaches as well in Dubai. Let's go ahead with our analysis today, and I hope that you enjoy it and you benefit from it. Give me your comments as usual. If there's things that you would want me to change, do more of, or do less of, please comment to me. What we've done today is we've looked at the ability to, the property is a price of 1,850,000 dirhams. Remember, guys, the analysis we're doing can work on any property all over the world. It's the same concept. Few changes here and there, work with taxation, with how you look at some of the metrics. Remember something else as well. What I'm presenting to you today is a sum of all my calculators together, or parts of all my calculators together. And the parts I've selected are parts that I've seen make most value to you, as well as are the simplest for you to be able to use. Now, the property is 150 square meter. Thus, it's a decent size property. This is called a D type. So for those who know Shoreline, this is a D type. Now, and D is not a category of the property. D type is the type of the property. Yeah. We started by a 5-year cash flow projection. Remember, when we're looking at a property, guys, we care about few elements more than others. One of them is cash flow. Why do we care about cash flow? Now, we'll talk about that. And then we care about the profit. Profit and the cash flow, or the return, the total return, or the ROE, and the cash flow are two separate things or elements to look at. And each benefits us in a way, and each serves us in a way. Now, when we talk profitability, we talk the total revenue that we get after we pay all costs. Now, when we say costs, some of you would buy property and take advice from us and would buy it with a mortgage. Now, those who would buy it with a mortgage have a cost of funding. The payment of the loan is not all a cost. The payment of a loan is two parts. It's a cost on one part. It is on another part a equity buildup, which, in other words, you're paying back or you're buying more equity of the property. You're owning more of it. Now, the interest is a cost. The other one is not, is return. The tenant is paying for your property simply. I will show you something fascinating through the numbers today, which probably I haven't highlighted much in the previous session, but I will highlight much here. And when you see it, guys, I promise you'll be fascinated. You'll say, wow, is that real? That's real. Now, we'll start by looking at the rental income. Today, this property is rented at 150,000 dirhams. Now, remember, this specific property can today rent at around 165,000. Yet, I will keep it at 150 because I would like to go with conservative numbers. So, I will not incorporate into my calculation the escalation, the immediate escalation, or the very fast escalation of rent that I can do without even doing a value add. I always calculate a vacancy rate, and you would have seen from the previous session that a vacancy rate is major for me, and I am excessive in my vacancy rate. So over here, I've accumulated around 12,000 dirhams of vacancy rate a year. Remember, that means it's approximately a month a year. It's not exactly a month, but it's approximately a month a year. You tell me a property doesn't get vacant for a month every year. It gets vacant for a month every few years, and sometimes not even for a month in a good area, in a decent market. I would tell you, cool, I'm happier calculating things that way, so that if it does make sense that way, it means it is the right property for me and it can't go wrong, or it rarely can go wrong, because all investments can go wrong. Or can go right. Who said that that's wrong? If an investment drops in value or rises in value, both probably are right. So revenues, guys, are 138,000 after we discount the vacancy rate over here. Expenses, and the expenses here are of multiple parts. I'll share the expenses with you before we go forward, and then we'll go back to what we were talking about. So the expenses, guys, are several elements. Part of it is the service charges, which is the bulk of the costs here. The service charges are and we have a session that we've done on costs. Service charges are the cost of the communal charges that you pay for operating the building and operating your community, but not your apartment, yeah? And then there is a maintenance charges. And here, when I say maintenance charges, I'm accounting for a maintenance cost every year. And this maintenance cost I account for annually. and it is around 2 to 3% of the rental return that I account for. Now, why do I account for that maintenance charge? You would tell me the property is new. Now, this property is not new. It's around 12 to 15 years old. Actually, it's more than 15 now. However, you tell me the property is new or it doesn't have this much problems. It doesn't have to have problems. If it didn't have a proper problem this year, it may have a problem next year. So you need to account for that so that you can have a reserve fund of that. Miscellaneous, and miscellaneous are several elements. Now, this property, as you notice, you remember last time we talked about a management fee. Even if you're managing the property, you're not giving it to management company, there should be a management fee. You'll notice here that I've added miscellaneous as a cost, which is around 2,000 dirhams annually, and 2,000 dirhams you would tell me is small if you want to incorporate the management fee into it. Yes, I usually put 2,000 to 2,500 dirhams annually as miscellaneous, a notice given to the tenant or anything like that. All of those costs do accumulate, and sometimes you don't have them, but when you do have them, you need to account for them. If you don't have them, this is additional cash that have been pumped, but you have a provision for it so that you wouldn't be ever surprised with it. Now, this property is rented with a 3-year rental contract. So there's a company that's renting it for 3 years, and they've paid the 3 years of rent in advance. So I'm collecting if I buy it, and I didn't go through yet the details of the whole analysis, but I believe now we'll decide before the end of it. The property does not require any management because they have taken their own maintenance contract, and the rent is net of anything but the cost of parts. And that's why the maintenance here you see is slightly less than the 3% that I would account usually for in maintenance. Now, so they will do everything. They will get the labor. They will do everything like that. You don't need to collect payments. You don't need to do anything for the coming 3 years. So I haven't accounted here for a charge, yet in general account for a management charge. And then insurance. Insurance is a very important charge because you need property insurance. I know most of you do not have property insurance and do not account for a property insurance as a need. I believe that it is a need, and I believe that everyone should account for it. Now, to go back here, those are the costs. So when you see here the cost of 26,800, this is what they're formed of. They're formed of those costs, and you add it every year. You will see here at the end, guys, that I've calculated an average growth rate of rental income, of vacancy period cost, of revenues, of expenses. And you see that the expenses here, the rate of growth is less than the rate of growth of other elements. I would tell you the reason behind that is that the service charges should not grow by as fast as the income annually. And that's because it's a major part of the expenses here. It is, although sometimes some of you would tell me, yes, it does in my building. It probably is a single building, and with time, hopefully, it will be reversed in a way or another. Things are being looked at in that direction. So then we have the net operating income, which is here, and then the financing. Now, this is the financing cost in total. It's not only the cost, it's the payments. So those are the total payments of financing, of funding. And then we have under it here the operating cash flows, which is the cash flows that you have been able to achieve on that property. Now, remember, a positive cash flow property is very important. Here is where I will show you things that are fascinating with numbers. Remember, the cash flow is not the only profit you'll get. So the cash flow alongside half approximately of this. So if I would want to calculate it, I would say you pay 50% and you pay 50% for interest. So 50% for equity and 50% for interest. In other words, you're here making around 44,500 or 44,850 dirhams approximately in additional profit. It's not cash. That's why it's in a different category. Now we'll talk why. Purchase expenses, and here we've added the purchase expenses on the first year, and those are the registration costs, the transfer costs, all of those costs that you do have. Now, The operating expenses ratio is 19.4, and again, we'll see why is that metric important. Now, what I want you to look at here is the number of cash and the amount of cash that the property is generating. Now, I would call this cash on cash return, and we'll look at it now in a second in a different piece of our analysis. Now, imagine, guys, that you have a property. You've only paid here 20% of it as a down payment. 80% has been paid by the bank. The tenant is paying for the loan, for the interest, and for equity buildup so that you own more in the property. You're making additional profit annually. That cash flow accumulated resembles much. Why? Because the property is still there. It's paying for itself. It's paying more. And then you're taking part of it and you're putting it in a different pocket. It could be an investment pocket. You can invest that money. You can do much with it. Now, the numbers become much more fascinating when we go beyond year 5. But here, let's look at year 5 and the metrics we're looking at. Cap rate is very important, and the cap rate is the capitalization rate. In other words, the kind of income that this property does make. Cash on cash return is the return that this property makes on your cash. In other words, the property is making you positive cash flow here, and that cash is being considered a return on the equity you've put in. So that's the cash on cash return. Now you will see here for the first year it's minus 25 because I loaded the first year with the cost of purchasing the property. You can load them on, rather than considering them operating costs, you can load them on the value of the property itself. Okay, it's either or. It works in a similar way. Now, internal rate of return, or IRR, is something also important because it indicates for you how profitable the property is. And the gross rent multiplier. And why did I use all of those over here? Because you don't need all of those all the time. However, every single one of those is an indicator for you. It's not the only indicator, but if you take an indicator like the gross rent multiplier here and you compare a property alike to like, it significantly gives you an idea of what the investment is you're looking at. Now, under that, we'll look at the loan balance and the projected equity and the equity buildup. Now, remember, this is the loan balance, the market value. This is the loan balance first year. It's approximately 79.7 because in the first year, mostly what you're paying is interest rather than equity buildup. Still, your equity is growing. This is the equity first year. It's the equity second year. It's the equity third year. Look at the equity growing. So here, the money that you've put, which is probably 350,000 or whatever, was 390. In 5 years, other than the cash you've made on the side, you've made 903,000 as an equity buildup. So you have now 3 times your equity as an equity. Imagine. Just concentrate with me and imagine that. I'll show you something more fascinating in a second, but just concentrate with me and imagine that. You've put 350,000, it became 900,000, which is around 3x. On top of that, and that's without the property growing in value, yeah? Probably a growth considered here of 2%. This is the growth that we consider usually. I can consider 4 or 5 easily in some markets, but I prefer to consider 2. Now, this is the price. Imagine that beside it directly, you have 3x as a profit. And remember that every year you're making cash that you can invest in other properties or in other assets or in other investments and make money on that. So look at this. You have one investment. You're taking money out of it. Now, this investment is growing, but at the same time, you're taking money out of this and you're investing in another investment. This investment by itself will make money also, and you'll invest it in another investment. Can you imagine? And this is a cycle, guys, and it's an infinite return cycle. It's a cycle of infinite return. Concentrate with me on the rest. Here is where it becomes even much more fascinating, guys. Imagine, guys, that the property year 10 will be able to generate an operating cash flow of 45,000 dirhams. Remember, the money you've invested initially is 350,000 dirhams. Imagine that year 15, it will be able to generate 60,000 in free cash flow. Remember, your equity is still building up. Yeah? Equity is still building up. Year 25, year 30, year 35, guys, and that's numbers that are crazy that you today cannot really believe, but this is reality of what property is and what it can produce. Now, it's the right property, this is what it should be, but this is what it can produce. Now, this property until now is looking good. I'll tell you later on how to stress test it, because I always stress test the property. But it's looking good. It's looking good because it has a consistent income, it has consistent positive cash flow, it has a good equity build-up, so profitability is very, very good. Cash on cash return, as we said, cash flow is good. And I like the area. I like the Shoreline because I believe it has so much potential. It's an area that has so much potential. Now, we've done that. We've looked at the first 35 years. And here we look at the capitalization rate for the year 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Remember, we just looked at them for the first 5 years. Imagine, guys, that the IRR is growing, but also you will see it here in a way or another sliding. Now, why would it be sliding this way? It's sliding this way because the value of the property is growing with time. Yeah, the cap rate is growing and is growing significantly. Cash on cash return goes into crazy numbers very fast in the future. Okay, look at this cash on cash return. Even year 15, guys, it's amazing. Okay, so and the magic happens with time. If you see the first 5 years, and here is the first 5 years, yeah? First 5 years, yes, here is the first 5 years. It's 6.6. This is the cap rate, for example. Year 10, it's 7.3. It's not a huge difference, yeah? Although in property terms, it is a very good difference. Year 20, guys. Year 25, even year 15, look at the change, the difference between a year and another, especially on the cash on cash return. Now, if we notice that loan balance is dropping with time, 25, there's no more loan. With the loan balance dropping, the loan to value is dropping until it becomes zero. At that time, everything the property earns is zero. However, here we have potential to refinance. It's what I call the exit, no exit. If you have a property, it's right, the fundamentals in it are right, fundamentals in the area are right, fundamentals, everything are right. Why exit it? It's paying you well, growth and value have happened. Rather than you selling it, if it still has potential to grow, and most of the time in the prime area, the right area, it does have the potential to grow because it can grow with inflation, it can grow with the area progressing, it can go with many things. What you would do is you refinance it. And when you refinance it, you've exited it, you've got more cash out, sometimes more than what you've paid in. So your equity in is minus rather than being even zero. But at the same time, what you've done is you've had a very decent journey, and you would continue this journey, and you would still make so much sense out of the journey for the future. And that's key. Now, I mentioned and here I put this slide just because I wanted you to see the details of the mortgage, because some people didn't, or what wasn't clear to some people last time. I put 3%, I put variable, although currently, if I want to get a mortgage, for example, I can get it at less than 3%, and I can get it fixed for 3 to 5 years. But I put variable because with time, it's expected that rates will rise, although it will drop eventually again, probably. But if you take an average of 3, you would be safe off much surprises, even if you have a lower rate for 5 years now. I prefer that because my game is a much longer game. Maybe yours is not, although I advise you for it to be. Now, the expenses, as we said, we mentioned the expenses here. I clarified the expenses and detailed them because it's very important. And what I wanted also to show you is the revenues relevant to the operating cash flow. And cash flow is important, but revenues and the revenue growth are also important because the property value fundamentally is linked directly to how much it can produce. So a property that does produce more is of more value. And yes, you tell me a trophy asset somewhere produces very little, but it's amazing and a quality of experience that it offers, and it can sell and grow in value. It's a different quality asset. It's not an operating and cash flowing asset. Probably it's an asset that is an experienced asset. The dynamics of that work different. This is for people who are looking for property that does cash flow, which I'm a fan of, a big fan of. Now, here is where some of the people who asked for my fundamental analysis, and we talked about it in this analysis significantly. Guys, it is unrivaled. I believe it is an unrivaled location. Palm Jumeirah is 7th wonder of the world or 8th wonder of the world, or it is a wonder. It's an amazing place. It's on the beach. Beachfront is beachfront and beach access is beach access, although this property is not beachfront. It has a view to the park. The view is good. It's not the best of views. It's not a sea view, but it's a view to the park, which is decent. It has a decent layout, no triangle rooms. It's decent. So I would give it a go here. Now, I'll not complicate it here, but as I said, if you wish, comment, and I will put for you a whole session that talks mainly about the fundamentals that aren't quantifiable. Does it create a positive cash flow? Yes. Value increase, I believe it does have a big potential value increase, especially that the property there now is trading at, it's not at a low, at a historic low, but it's very near to the historic low. It's probably around 20% from the historic low. With the current value of assets and valuations of assets, I believe that's cheap. Opportunity to rehab, definitely. Shoreline is a golden opportunity for rehab because it's a premium location. It's good buildings. It's a good community. It suits families. It suits people who want experience, people who want lifestyle. It's safe. All of those are good, but it's all buildings. And now the buildings from outside and the common areas are being renovated and the external of the community is being improved. Thus, it's a perfect opportunity to come and rehab your house. And you can do that in a very smart way. It takes a very short period of time, and it ends up with a great result. So it is a great potential for that, although we're not going to do that, yeah, at least for the coming 3 years when the tenant is there, or two and a half where the tenant is there. But it is a potential for that. Refinance, I believe with time it will be a potential for refinance, although it's too early to think about that. But yes, because I believe the value will improve. But I'll not take this into consideration. Increase income, I believe with time you will be able to increase income, but also I'll not give it a point over here. And risks of drop of income, and here I'll talk about stress testing a property. If you remember, the positive cash flow was 20,000 dirhams first year, then 23, then 24, then 26, whatever that is. It's around 15% to 17% of the asset or of the rental. And this means if the total rental drops by 20, 23, 24, 25, you'll be negatively cash flowing. You'll still be profiting because remember, you have 40-ish thousand dirhams in equity build-up every year in profit. However, I would love to see it at a better or better in a stress test to perform better, but it's not the end of the world. It's performing well. So I would give it a point over here, and I would say this is positive. Okay, so there's no need for a negative here. Value drop, I believe it's very near a historic low. Value drop is always possible when you're buying an asset, but I don't believe it's a big risk here. And unexpected costs, I also don't believe there's unexpected costs because it's an apartment, it's not a house, and the costs are quantifiable in a way or other. And I will not give it a negative over here. Last but not least, guys, I like this property. Now, I like, people who know me know that I like that area. I like this property. I like those numbers. And I'd probably be negotiating slightly from the 1.85. But if needed, maybe I would close at very near to that because it works well and the numbers work well. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you are liking what I'm presenting to you. And I hope that I covered it all. I left nothing out. We'll continue improving it. This is session 2. Wait till session 3 comes. Ciao. Enjoy your day.